The Moabites were an ancient people who traced their lineage back to Moab, the son of Lot. Moab was born from an incestuous relationship between Lot and his eldest daughter, making the Moabites close relatives of the Israelites. Despite this familial connection, the relationship between the Moabites and the Israelites was complex, oscillating between periods of peaceful coexistence and times of fierce enmity. In this text, we will delve into the history of the Moabites, exploring their origins, culture, religious practices, and their interactions with the Israelites. The origin of the Moabites. Moab, the progenitor of the Moabites, was born under controversial circumstances. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's daughters, fearing the extinction of their family line, decided to intoxicate their father and engage in sexual relations with him. From this, Moab was born to the eldest daughter, while the youngest daughter bore Ben-Ami, the ancestor of the Ammonites. This act of incest not only marked the origins of Moab, but also set a precedent for the complicated and often morally dubious relationships that would later characterize the interactions between the Moabites and the Israelites. The name Moab has been subject to various interpretations. Some scholars suggest that it could mean "from my father," which would directly reference the incestuous conception of Moab. However, the etymology remains uncertain, and this interpretation is speculative. Regardless, the name Moab eventually came to represent not just an individual, but a people and a land. The land of Moab. The territory of Moab was located on a plateau east of the Dead Sea, approximately 1,000 meters above sea level. This region, known as the land of Moab, was fertile and well-suited for agriculture. The Moabites primarily cultivated grains, cereals, and grapes, and they were also known for raising sheep. The geographical boundaries of Moab fluctuated throughout history, depending on the political and military strength of the Moabite people. Generally, the southern border of Moab reached the Zered Valley, while the northern boundary extended to the Arnon River, although in some periods, it reached even further north. The Moabites were likely among the early settlers of this region. Over time, they established a well-organized kingdom with a structured economy and significant architectural achievements. The Bible mentions several Moabite villages and cities, and archaeological evidence supports the existence of fortified structures that guarded the borders of Moab. Moabite religion and culture. The Moabites practiced a religion that bore many similarities to the Canaanite paganism prevalent in the region. They engaged in various rituals and ceremonies focused on fertility and the natural world. Among the deities worshipped by the Moabites, Chemosh was the most prominent. Chemosh was the national god of the Moabites, often associated with war. The Moabites offered sacrifices of sheep and cattle to Chemosh, but they also practiced human sacrifices, a gruesome ritual intended to appease their god. The Moabites' religious practices and moral values were often at odds with those of the Israelites. The Bible recounts several instances where the Israelites were led astray by Moabite women and their idolatrous practices. One notable episode occurred in the plains of Moab, where Israelite men were seduced by Moabite and Midianite women, leading to widespread immorality and idolatry. This event resulted in a divine command to exclude the Moabites from the congregation of Israel. Moabite-Israelite relations. The relationship between the Moabites and the Israelites is a recurring theme in the Bible, marked by both conflict and cooperation. During the Exodus, the Israelites passed through Moabite territory on their way to the Promised Land. Although Moses was instructed by God not to attack Moab, the Moabites did not offer hospitality to the Israelites. Instead, Balak, the king of Moab, hired the prophet Balaam to curse the Israelites, though his efforts were ultimately thwarted by God. Despite these hostilities, there were also periods of peaceful interaction between the two peoples. One of the most famous stories of Moabite-Israelite relations is the tale of Ruth, a Moabite woman who became an ancestor of King David and, by extension, Jesus Christ. Ruth's loyalty to her Israelite mother-in-law, Naomi, and her subsequent marriage to Boaz, a member of the tribe of Judah, illustrate that not all Moabite-Israelite interactions were antagonistic. However, for much of their history, the Moabites were a thorn in Israel's side. After the Israelites settled in Canaan, the Moabites often clashed with them. During the period of the Judges, the Moabite king Eglon oppressed the Israelites for 18 years until Ehud, a left-handed Israelite, assassinated him and liberated the people. The decline of Moab. With the rise of the Israelite monarchy, the Moabites faced further challenges. King Saul, Israel's first monarch, conducted military campaigns against them, and King David, who had familial ties to Moab, ultimately subjugated them. David's victories over the Moabites ensured that they remained under Israelite control during his reign. After the division of Israel into the northern and southern kingdoms, the Moabites regained some independence. However, during the reign of Omri and his son Ahab in Israel, Moab was once again brought under Israelite dominion. Following Ahab's death, the Moabites rebelled and gained their freedom. This independence was short-lived, as the Moabites were soon embroiled in further conflicts, including a coalition against the kingdom of Judah, which ended disastrously for them. In the 8th century BCE, the Moabites fell under the control of the Assyrian Empire, paying tribute to the Assyrian kings. After the fall of Assyria, Moab briefly reasserted its autonomy, but was eventually conquered by Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar's campaigns in the region included the subjugation of Moab, and by the time of the Persian Empire, the Moabites had been absorbed into larger political entities. The legacy of Moab. The Moabites gradually disappeared from the historical record, assimilated by surrounding peoples. However, their story remains a significant part of biblical history, serving as a reminder of the complex and often tumultuous relationships between the ancient peoples of the Near East. The prophets of the Old Testament, including Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, foretold the destruction of Moab, and their prophecies were fulfilled as Moab ceased to exist as a distinct nation. In the post-exilic period, the Moabites were still mentioned in historical sources, but they had lost their distinct identity, blending into the Arab tribes that inhabited the region. Today, the legacy of Moab lives on primarily through the biblical narratives and archaeological findings that offer glimpses into the life and culture of this ancient people. In conclusion, the history of the Moabites is a tale of rise and fall, of a people who once wielded power and influence in the ancient Near East, but ultimately succumbed to the forces of history. Their interactions with the Israelites, marked by both hostility and cooperation, reflect the broader dynamics of the region. While the Moabites are no longer a distinct people, their story continues to resonate through the pages of history and scripture.